Hello there ladies and gentlemen, TX141 here, also known as Paul, bringing you another Ace in a Day gameplay for the arcade mode of War Thunder. In today's episode I shall be reviewing the Hawker Hurricane Mark I. To provide you with a brief historical overview of the Hurricane and the variant depicted here in War Thunder, we must go back to 1933 and the British Air Ministry's call for a new monoplane fighter. Hawker responded in the form of their chief designer Sidney Cam, who put together the Hurricane design based off of the Hawker Sea Fury biplane. The first prototype, powered by a very early stage of the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, was to undergo its first test flight as of the 6th of November 1935 to great appraisal. The more formalised test flights as of the start of 1936 saw the Hurricane supersede all of the expectations set for it, meaning that as of the 3rd of June 1936 the first orders for Mark I Hurricanes were put in, with these Mark I's, the first production type, rolling out into combat-capable hands as of the 12th of October 1937. Whilst the Hurricane was a limited mainstay aircraft of the British RAF, thanks to the arrival of the Supermarine Spitfire as of 1938, the plane was to see 12 individual variants, all with numerous subtypes. A number of improvements implemented over the course of the Hurricane's history include, but are not limited to, the switching out of the fabric-based wings for metallic wings, the armouring of the windshield glass, and the continual uprating of the Merlin engine. Additionally, whilst this plane did see service in pretty much every theatre that the British RAF took part in, its most notable service was in the form of the Battle of Britain of 1940, whereby Hawker Hurricane pilots contributed to the highest number of kills by comparison with the combined victory total of Spitfires, other British RAF aircraft and the ground defences, meaning that whilst the Hurricane's history is quite limited and unknown by comparison with the Spitfire, the plane is of legendary value as one of the key workhorses of the British RAF, all the way up to January 1947 when it was rolled out of combat service. The variant we see here in War Thunder, the Hawker Hurricane Mark I, was the first production type as already mentioned, and had the fabric covered fuselage and wings, making it a highly durable aircraft to the German 20mm cannon rounds, as seen in a number of pictures which you may look at on say Google, whereby a piece of the wings of the Hurricanes were knocked out completely, yet the plane still made it home to base. Fielding 8 303 or 7.7mm Vickers Machine Guns, 4 in each wing, the Hurricane Mark I was powered by a Merlin II 1030 horsepower inline engine, making it quite a powerful performer. And so, with that being said, how exactly does the Hurricane Mark I perform in War Thunder? Well, as depicted in this ground strike gameplay on the map Desert Coast, we are going to see that the Hurricane Mark I does live up to a rather versatile nature as it did historically for its numerous variants. Whilst we are not going to depict it in a ground attacking role here, we are going to show that it can act as both fighter and bomber interceptor over a number of different cases. The setup we are using is as follows: stealth ammunition for the 7.7mm machine guns, and the reason I use stealth is due to the large concentration and mixture of armour piercing and incendiary rounds, which means that by comparison with the other belts you've got a very high chance of piercing fuel tanks and setting your target on fire. Additionally, we are using a gun convergence of 300 metres, because this will give us ample spray at longer distances versus larger targets such as this Beaufort which I'm about to attack, at roughly 0.57 kilometres. As we can see here that while we are well outside our convergence, our rounds are hitting multiple points on the target. Our armour piercing rounds have penetrated the fuel tank in the left wing, and our incendiaries have done the job of setting the wing on fire, allowing us to achieve our second kill. And finally, we are using a 30-minute fuel load, as standard to allow us to finish this match if it goes to its full time limit. Additionally, returning to the convergence, that means that at roughly 300 metres convergence, or around that point in terms of distance, you will do devastating damage to the smaller, more nimble fighters such as the I-16, a main battle rating contemporary at 2.0 to the Hurricane Mark I. As we cruise along to intercept a Lag 311 assaulting a friendly Dornier 217J1, we now have to talk about the overall performance nature of this plane with altitude. As I've already said, this plane doubles up as a fighter and a bomber interceptor, but how far can we extend that statement? In an altitude range of roughly 1000 to 4000 metres, this plane performs very well. The engine keeps its performance constant, and you can climb nicely, although you do not have the highest climb rate of your class. Indeed, that goes to the Ki-43, yet you have a climb rate which is comparable to, say, that of the Messerschmitt 110 and the Lag-3. At the same time, above 4000 metres altitude, as we are going to depict as we try to climb up towards this enemy Wellington that is being harassed by a friendly Junkers 87, we see that the engine loses its performance and the plane as a whole begins to drop off, being unable to pick up as much speed as it would normally do, and really the plane struggles to actually maintain a stable gun platform. At the same time, below 1000 metres, I have found that it is very difficult to accelerate to a higher speed. Now, if you have your speed already at 300 km an hour, your acceleration is fine. But if you drop below 200 km an hour at very low altitude, it is very difficult to build up your speed once again and return to the manoeuvrable state that this fighter tries to maintain with speed. And as a result, sticking to roughly an altitude range of 2000 to 3000 metres does this plane very well. As we can see here, on the verge of stalling at roughly 3950 metres altitude and a speed of 140 km an hour, we're able to put in enough rounds from our spray of machine gun fire to finish off that Wellington for our 4th kill, thanks to the assistance of our friendly Junkers 87 of course. We now proceed to dive down, and as we dive down we can see that the roll rate is consistent until we hit about 500 km an hour, or really 475 km an hour. It's at this speed that the roll rate begins to lock up, but very gradually, and you will only see a massive roll rate lock up at 550 km an hour or more. As a result, maintaining a speed of roughly 300 to 400 km an hour will bode you well, although do not be afraid to drop your speed to 250 km an hour in the midst of a turn fight, because this plane maintains its overall controllability until you drop below 200 km an hour. We dispatched that A-20G-30 Havoc once again by using the overall spray of our machine guns, a British RAF philosophy at first of, instead of opting for the more powerful cannons, just spraying and hoping that a key point is hit. We managed to knock down that Havoc very succinctly thanks to taking out the top gunner, and eventually hitting one of the fuel tanks with a combination of armour piercing and incendiary rounds. We opt out of going head to head with a BB-1 thanks to the fact they usually field tracer rounds as the belts and a high number of armour piercing incendiaries as a result, and we begin to fly away after a rather gradual dive. And we see that an enemy Messerschmitt 110 is assaulting a friendly 110, so we decide to contribute. And we can see here that our stealth belt is able to make sure the 110 is not allowed to catch us in the midst of our attack. Instead, we are able to catch them off guard, although unfortunately we just cannot keep up with our target. And so as we turn around once again, noticing another enemy fighter coming in on us, it's a Spitfire Mark IIA. Yet once again we just cannot catch up. And this is one of the problems with the Hurricane Mark I. It has a low top speed, and its acceleration on the whole is rather weak by comparison with a good portion of the planes it will face. As a result, whilst you will be able to build up to good speeds, as mentioned previously, getting to those speeds is the difficult part. And really, turn fighting will usually mean that you're going to have to spend a good portion of your time afterwards building up that speed that you've lost. And it is one of the trade-ins of having a very high manoeuvrability frame. You can outturn almost all of your opponents in certain regards. If you are going up against the more manoeuvrable A5M4, Ki-43 or even the I-16, you have the ability to use landing flaps directly instead of combat flaps, as this plane does not have the ability to implement the combat flaps in arcade. As a result, for a very short period of time, you can bleed a huge chunk of your speed to bring yourself around. And when combined with the very powerful rudder on this aircraft, you can outturn and outmaneuver almost anything. We come on the back of an enemy Spitfire Mark I here for an easy 6th kill, as they are unaware of our presence, and then we break up incredibly tight to an enemy Lag-311, because there was an enemy aircraft booming down on top of us as we broke up alongside the Lag-3. Here we put out a number of rounds once again, with our lack of experience using stealth rounds causing us to miss a good portion of our burst. Yet we managed to maintain our position, and soon we lock ourselves in nice and tight to the Lag-311 and achieve kill number 7, thanks to a fuselage fire and that eventually passing through to the pilot. We opt at this point in order to reload, and we take a good portion of fire from an enemy Lag-38. Yet here we can see the durability of the Hurricane Mark I coming to good effect. We absorbed at least one 20mm round to the fuselage and one to the left wing. Additionally, we took a good portion of 12.7mm machine gun fire to the main fuselage, yet we are still in the fight, by comparison with say a Lag-38 or a Messerschmitt 109E1 that may have lost a wing thanks to that burst, or even a Spitfire Mark I whose durability cannot match up to you. Here we decide to try and break down on top of an A6M2N, a plane that's far more manoeuvrable than us in all regards. We do not manage to get the shot on them, but we achieve our 8th kill on that lag free from earlier. And here we have a Messerschmitt 109E3 try to break round on us. We absorb a couple of 7.7mm machine gun rounds, 7.29mm machine gun rounds, mine too, and we manage to break them off. At this point we break round onto the back of a Cow 27-02 in the midst of a turn fight, and we very quickly get a critical and achieve our 9th kill. Now whilst I do not like to turn fight, we can see here that already the overall manoeuvrability and versatility of the Hurricane in both the vertical and the horizontal allows us to achieve a good portion of kills and assists in a very limited space. Additionally, we avoided a good portion of the enemy fire, and once again we break onto the back of a lag free 11 here, who passes for a friendly for a ram, yet we're going to make them be punished for that. As soon as we continue to break round thanks to our very tight turn circle by comparison to lag free 11, I'm starting to get worried about crashing into friendly aircraft, so I want to finish this kill off. And with our remaining rounds, we do so for our double ace. We now go for another reload, and really we should mention at this point, as we try to break away and build up our speed, another key factor about the Hurricane Mark I, and that is you have a lot of ammunition. Those 2,800 rounds will mean that you will be able to put out ample fire into targets. Additionally, because the rounds are of such low calibre, reloads are simple and quick, meaning that you should not be afraid to spray ample ammunition into your target. Even with a low reload skill, you can very quickly reload after a couple of increases in this skill. And so, as a result, you can really let the hammer down in the midst of a turn fight. Now, with the airfield taken out, the enemy airfield, I go for a landing just to complete the game, as while my plane is not completely damaged, I thought it would be a fitting end to what was quite a tough turn fight. And so, with our game concluded and the Survivor Award achieved, we're now going to take a look at some post-game stats. Hence, we can see our double ace and the 2 assists allowed us to earn 17,600 silver lines. On top of this, we earned 1,549 research points, with 465 of those going towards our research on the Spitfire LF Mark 9. We thereby conclude this review of the Hurricane Mark I by realising that it is a highly versatile monoplane for its battle rating of 2.0. Whilst it does have some limitations in terms of its higher altitude performance beyond 4,000 metres and its overall performance below an altitude of 1,000 metres, the plane works well at 2,000 to 3,000 metres altitude and at a speed of 250 to 400 km an hour. Exceed 550 km an hour and you'll find your roll rate begins to lock up. Yet on the whole the control surfaces remain very responsive in the full components of the rudder, the aileron and the elevators, and this means that you've got a highly manoeuvrable aircraft which can outturn the likes of say a Yak 1, a Lag 3, an F4F Wildcat, along with others. At the same time, whilst you do not have combat flaps, you have the ability to directly access your landing flaps, and these, when used sparingly due to the fact they bleed a lot of energy out of the plane, allow you to turn as tightly as say an I-16, or for a very short period of time, the legendary KI-43. As a result, this means that whether you go into energy fights or turn fights, you can very quickly gain the advantage for a short period of time on your foe, and once you have them in front of your rather diversive and deadly 8 Vickers Machine Guns, i.e. the 7.7mm calibre, you can quickly shred your opponents to pieces before they're able to break out of your lead. And we can see very shortly that by comparison with the rest of our team, that we came first. Not by a huge margin, but because we utilised the overall versatility of this aircraft to its full effectiveness. We started off by intercepting the enemy climbers thanks to our moderate climb rate. We then proceeded to accelerate and build up our overall position to attack a couple of the enemy bombers, including a Beaufort. We then moved on to escort a friendly Dornier 217J1, intercept an A20G30 Havoc, a deadly fighter battle rating, and we then pushed on to engage a number of foes in a deadly furball over our friendly airfield. We have shown that this plane works well as both an energy and a turn fighter, although please be aware that in the energy fighter role you may receive some frustration due to the low burst mass rating of the plane, especially seeing as you only have machine guns and no cannon armament. To beat a Hurricane Mark I then, you have to make use of the fact that its acceleration is poor on the whole, and so making it fight extended fights over long distances and in linear patterns, especially when employed in say a Yak 1, a Lag 3 or an F4F Wildcat, will mean that you can implement the fact that this plane's got poor acceleration and a rather low top speed to your full advantage. And over successive bursts you will find that the durability of the Hurricane Mark 1, whilst quite legendary, is not able to hold up to the sustained fire of multiple 20mm cannon rounds going in onto the wing linkages to the fuselage, and this is how you will take one down. Nonetheless, if you are looking for an early monoplane which is able to teach you the basics of turn fighting and energy fighting over the course of multiple games to much enjoyment, then the Hurricane Mark 1 is the fighter for you. And so I've been TX141, albeit with a bit of a cold, and I apologise for any inconsistencies and hesitation during the course of this video. Hopefully I'll get better within the coming weeks. Nonetheless, if you have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder videos on my channel. Yet until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies.